right, so Hermes Agent OS and Manus are both trying to be your go-to agent platform right now. And one of them is completely free, while the other just set a GIA benchmark record above 65%. Those are very different value props, and we're going to figure out which one actually wins for you. Agent tools are moving really, really fast right now. So getting this choice wrong costs you real time and real money. We're comparing Hermes Agent OS versus Manus across 4 real tests: task completion, tool integration, pricing, and data privacy, and everything here traces back to verified sources, no vendor spin. And honestly, the final score is going to surprise you, because the tool that wins on raw capability is not the one that wins overall. And the reason comes down to one thing most people aren't even thinking about when they pick an agent platform. So who is this for? If you're a developer, a builder, or someone running knowledge work at scale, and you're trying to decide whether to spin up a local agent setup or just pay for a cloud platform, this comparison is for you, because the wrong pick means either blowing your budget on opaque credits or spending weeks setting up infrastructure that never quite works in production. Test 1 is autonomous multi-step task completion. And this one matters a lot because it's the core promise of any agent platform, right? Can it actually take a messy multi-step goal and finish it without you holding its hand the whole way? And if an agent can't do that reliably, everything else is kind of beside the point. Here's what we got. Manus has a community-reported Gaia benchmark score above 65%, which is state-of-the-art territory, and Hermes Agent OS has no published benchmark number at all, which isn't exactly a knock on it because these are totally different setups. Manus is a cloud autonomous agent, and Hermes is a local orchestration layer, so you're not comparing apples to apples here. Manus takes test 1 because it's the only product here with actual benchmark evidence of autonomous task execution, and Hermes is an orchestration dashboard rather than a standalone reasoning agent. So there's nothing to compare on this dimension, which puts the score at Hermes Agent OS 0, Manus 1 after the first test. Take this with a grain of salt though, because that Gaia score is community reported with no independent enterprise replication, and Manus users in production report real reliability issues and context window constraints. So Hermes isn't trying to be a standalone agent and calling this a loss, for it is kind of like penalizing a control room for not being a robot. Test 2 is tool, integration breadth, and reliability. And this one is really practical because an agent that can't connect to the tools you already use is just a toy. So we're looking at how many native integrations each platform ships with, how those integrations actually run in production, and how much setup work lands on you. Manus ships with 29 plus native app integrations, community reported, and runs a Codact engine that lets it execute Python directly in a cloud VM, so it handles browser, shell, and API calls natively. While Hermes Agent OS has no fixed native integration count and connects to any agent via API key, which is flexible but means you're building the connections yourself, and reliability data for both is pretty thin. Manus takes test 2 because 29 plus pre-built integrations and a self-contained execution environment beats a blank slate you have to wire up yourself, at least for out-of-the-box coverage. And that puts us at Hermes Agent OS 0, Manus 2. So Manus is running the table on capability tests so far. Honestly, the gap here depends a lot on your use case, because Hermes Agent OS accepts any model via API key. So if you need to plug in a custom or internal model, it wins on extensibility. Manus locks you to its model roster. And some of Manus's 29 plus integrations reportedly need workarounds for internal enterprise tools. So that number is a little rosier than it sounds in practice. Test 3 is pricing transparency and cost per task. And this one is so important if you're thinking about running agents at any kind of scale, because it's one thing to pay for a tool and a completely different thing to not know how much you're paying until you've already burned through your budget on a single request. Hermes Agent OS is free and open source, full stop, and your only costs are API tokens at provider rates, pennies per task, community reported, while Manus runs on a credit model ranging from free up to $200 a month, but users report burning 900 plus credits on a single complex task, and some burn through their entire free starter allocation on their very first request. And the pricing docs conflict across at least 3 sources. Hermes Agent OS takes test 3, and it's not even close, because free and predictable beats opaque and unpredictable every time when you're trying to plan production costs, and that brings the score to Hermes Agent OS 1, Manus 2. So Hermes is finally on the board, and this thing is tightening up. Test 4 is data privacy and local deployment. And if you work in a regulated industry, or you're just not comfortable with your data hitting someone else's servers, this might be the most important test in the whole video. Because where your data goes when an agent runs a task is not a small detail. Hermes Agent OS runs fully local on Mac, Windows, or Linux. And nothing leaves your machine unless you explicitly call a cloud API model. And that call is your choice. While Manus is cloud primary, and even in its desktop hybrid mode, any task that needs LLM reasoning still routes to Manus servers. And Manus is developed by a Singapore-registered company with Chinese origins, which community reports flag as a real enterprise adoption barrier. Hermes Agent OS takes test 4 because full local control with zero SaaS data sharing is a clean verified win over a cloud primary platform where reasoning always hits external servers. And that ties the overall score at Hermes Agent OS 2, Manus 2, which is way closer than you probably expected going in. Okay, so here's where Hermes Agent OS wins cleanly. It costs nothing to run, zero subscription, just API token costs at provider rates. All your data stays on your machine. You can plug in any model or agent via API key, so you're never locked to a vendor's roster. You never get a surprise credit bill because cost is metered and predictable at the API level. And here's where Manus wins cleanly. It's the only product here with published benchmark evidence. A community-reported Gaia score above 65% makes it ships. 29 plus native integrations with a self-contained Kodak execution environment and no setup required. You give it a high-level goal, and it plans, executes, and delivers, and it dynamically invokes Claude 3.5, Claude 3.7, and Alibaba Quain, depending on the subtask. So here's the decision rule. If you need fully autonomous end-to-end execution with benchmark credibility, and you're fine with cloud data routing and a credit subscription, go with Manus. But if data privacy, cost predictability, or enterprise compliance are non-negotiable for you, go with Hermes Agent OS. Because it's free, local first, and you control every single data path. And honestly, these tools solve adjacent problems, not the same one.